All right, let's dive in. Today we're tackling this whole return to office thing. It's everywhere you look, but I get the feeling, and it seems you do too, that there's more to the story.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more going on beneath the surface.
We've got this report that really gets into the nitty-gritty, and honestly, it's kind of blown my mind.
It's pretty fascinating.
So let's start with this assumption that just by putting people back in the office, like magic, collaboration will skyrocket. That whole proximity equals productivity idea.
Right, like osmosis or something.
Yeah, exactly. But this report challenges that head on. They call it the myth of proximity.
And they had some pretty compelling evidence to back it up. A Gartner survey found that satisfaction with collaboration actually went down after RTO, like significantly down, from 36% in 2021 to just 29% this year.
So you're telling me people were actually happier collaborating before they were all crammed back into offices? That's kind of a big deal, right?
It's a pretty stark contrast to the narrative we've been hearing.
So help me understand this. How is that even possible?
Well, think about it. The pandemic forced us to figure out how to work together remotely. We got comfortable with virtual meetings, asynchronous communication, all that stuff.
We kind of had to, right?
Exactly. And in the process, a lot of us realized that we could be more focused and productive without all the distractions of a busy office.
I actually remember feeling that myself once I got over the initial hump of adjusting to working from home.
It's a common experience. Jessica Knight, a VP of research at Gartner, even pointed out that people are now using AI to handle tasks they used to collaborate on. So being pulled back to the office can disrupt that flow, those new rhythms we've established.
So it's not just about missing the comfy sweatpants. There's a real shift in how we work that's happening.
Absolutely. It's a cultural shift, and this report argues that it's a major factor in why RTO isn't quite living up to the hype.
Okay, so we've got this myth of proximity, busted, plus a fundamental change in how we work. But this report doesn't stop there, right?
Oh, there's more.
It gets into some pretty, let's say, sensitive territory.
Yeah, it touches on something that's been pretty hard to ignore lately.
You're talking about politics, right? Like the whole political climate seeping into the workplace.
Exactly. And it's not just speculation. The Gartner research found that a full 30% of employees are now actively avoiding colleagues because of differing viewpoints.
Wow, 30%. That's huge. I can see how that would create a lot of tension.
It's a significant jump from just a couple of years ago.
And if people are avoiding each other, that can't be good for teamwork or communication.
It creates this atmosphere of distrust, which makes real collaboration incredibly difficult. It's like a minefield, and HR teams are now having to navigate it on top of everything else they're dealing with.
So it's not just about productivity.
Yeah.
It's impacting company culture in a pretty serious way.
It definitely adds another layer of complexity to this whole RTO situation.
Okay, so we've got the proximity myth debunked. We've got this cultural shift towards independent work, and now we've got political polarization thrown into the mix. It's starting to sound like RTO is facing some pretty big hurdles.
It's a fair assessment. But amidst all these challenges, the report does offer some glimmers of hope.
Okay, tell me there's some good news in here somewhere.
There is. It suggests that instead of fixating on just getting people back into the office, we need to rethink the office altogether.
So not just butts and seats.
Right. We need to ask ourselves, what purpose does the office really serve?
I like that. It's about being more intentional, more strategic.
Exactly. And the report highlights some interesting ideas about that. It points to the work of Rashad Tabakawala, who identifies 4 key purposes for the office.
Oh, I've heard of him. He's that marketing guru, right?
That's the one. He argues that the office should primarily be used for relationship building, absorbing company culture, learning and development, and fostering creativity and innovation.
Makes sense. But, sometimes I walk through an office and I see people doing the same work they could be doing at home, just alone with their headphones on. It's like, is the office really serving its purpose then?
That's a great point. Just having a physical space doesn't automatically make those things happen. Companies need to design the office experience in a way that actually encourages those activities.
So less rows of desks, more spaces for interaction and brainstorming.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment that truly supports collaboration, not just solitary work.
And the report has some examples of companies that are doing this well, right? Like those that have gone fully remote first.
Yeah, companies like Yelp have been really successful with their remote work setup.
Yelp, huh? I've heard good things about their approach.
They've implemented things like no meeting Fridays and core working hours to help employees maintain a healthy work-life balance. They also host regular in-person events specifically for team building and connection.
So they're not anti-office. They just see it as serving a specific purpose.
Exactly. And their results speak for themselves. Their internal surveys show that 90% of their employees feel they found effective ways to collaborate remotely.
That's impressive. So they figured out how to make remote collaboration work. But is there a secret sauce? Something specific they're doing that others can learn from?
That's a great question, and it leads us to another crucial point. The report raises the importance of what they call guided collaboration.
Guided collaboration. Now, I'm intrigued.
Break that down for me.
It's the idea that simply throwing people together, whether in person or virtually, isn't enough. You need to provide structure and support to make collaboration truly effective.
So you're saying companies are expecting people to collaborate effectively without giving them any guidance on how to do it?
Unfortunately, that's often the case. The Gartner report found that 2/3 of organizations lack formal instruction on what good collaboration even looks like, let alone how to achieve it.
Wow, that's like sending a team out to play a sport with no coach, no playbook, no nothing. Exactly. It sets people up for failure. Guided collaboration is about providing clear policies, tools, and processes to facilitate teamwork. It's about setting expectations, defining roles, and offering training on effective communication and collaboration techniques.
So it's like giving people a roadmap for success.
Exactly. And the benefits are significant. Organizations that adopt this approach see real improvements in employee retention, profitability, and innovation.
So it's not just about being nice, it's good for business.
It's a win-win for everyone. And it brings us to a really important question that I think everyone should be asking themselves. What if, instead of asking, how do we get people back in the office, we start asking, how do we design work to help people thrive no matter where they are?
I love that. It's like flipping the whole script.
It is. It's not about location. It's about creating an environment that supports well-being and collaboration wherever people happen to be.
And that's where technology comes in, right?
Absolutely. We need tools and platforms that facilitate communication and information sharing across distances. It's about building a virtual office that's just as functional and engaging as a physical one.
Sounds kind of like what we were all forced to do during the pandemic, just on a much larger scale.
It's definitely a challenge, but it's one that more and more companies are figuring out. And it's not just about having the tech. It's about how you use it, how it's integrated into the company culture.
So you need to build a culture of digital fluency, where everyone's comfortable using technology to collaborate effectively.
Exactly. And you need clear expectations around communication and responsiveness so people don't feel lost or disconnected when they're working remotely.
Because that can definitely happen.
And it's also about recognizing that different people have different needs. Some thrive in a busy office, others are more productive at home. The key is to find a model that caters to those individual needs while still fostering a sense of community.
So it's not one size fits all. It's about finding the right balance, the right blend.
Precisely. And that becomes even more important as the future of work becomes more distributed and fluid.
It's really interesting to see how all these threads are coming together. Remote work, tech advancements, employee well-being. It's like a whole new paradigm is emerging.
It is. And it presents a huge opportunity for companies to rethink their approach to RTO and design truly future-proof work environments.
So less about office-centric and more about flexibility and human-centered design.
Exactly. So what can companies do to actually make this shift happen? What are some practical steps?
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
First and foremost, they need to let go of the assumption that proximity equals collaboration. We've seen that's just not true.
Okay, so ditch that outdated mindset. What's next?
Focus on building a culture of collaboration, regardless of location. That means investing in the right tools and platforms, setting clear expectations for communication.
This is great stuff. Keep going.
Provide training on effective collaboration techniques, both virtual and in person. Encourage asynchronous communication to reduce unnecessary meetings. And crucially, foster a culture of trust and psychological safety.
Because without that, nothing else really works, right?
Exactly. People need to feel comfortable sharing ideas, asking for help, giving feedback. That's how real innovation happens.
No, this isn't just for remote teams, is it? These are good practices for any company.
You're absolutely right. These are fundamental principles of good teamwork, period.
It's like we're talking about building a more human-centered workplace, one that recognizes people have lives outside of work and that values well-being as much as productivity.
Precisely. It's about creating a work environment where people feel valued and supported so they can do their best work and thrive.
And ultimately, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Creating a workplace where people actually want to be, whether that's in the office, at home, or somewhere in between.
Couldn't agree more. That's a future of work worth striving for.
Well said. It's been so insightful. But before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on one more thing. We've talked a lot about the role of technology in all of this, and I know a lot of companies are struggling with the IT side of managing a hybrid workforce.
It's a common pain point.
Making sure everyone has the right tools, managing devices and security, providing support to people who are all over the place. It's a lot.
It can definitely be overwhelming, especially for companies that are used to a more traditional IT setup.
Exactly. And that's where I think companies like GroWrk come in. They specialize in IT solutions designed specifically for hybrid and remote teams.
Right. They can help companies manage all those complexities, freeing up internal IT teams to focus on other priorities.
It's like having an extension of your IT team dedicated to supporting your hybrid workforce.
Exactly. And it can make a huge difference in ensuring a smooth and successful transition to a more flexible work model.
So if anyone listening is feeling overwhelmed by the IT side of things, definitely check out companies like GroWrk. They can provide the expertise and support you need to make it all work.
Great advice. And it's a reminder that technology can be a huge enabler of flexibility and collaboration, as long as it's implemented thoughtfully.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I think the key takeaway is this. The future of work is all about flexibility, adaptability, and putting people first. It's not about clinging to the old ways of doing things. It's about creating a work environment that supports collaboration, innovation, and well-being, no matter where people are.
Absolutely. The companies that embrace this mindset are the ones that will thrive in the long run.
Well said. Thanks again for joining me today and for sharing your insights with our listeners.
It was my pleasure. Always enjoy these conversations.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We hope you found this deep dive informative and thought-provoking. And remember, if you're looking for help managing the IT needs of your hybrid team, GroWrk can help. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
Yeah, it's like that extra layer of support can really take the pressure off.
For sure. It lets companies focus on what they do best. All right, so as we wrap things up here today, what's the big takeaway?
Well, I think it's clear the future of work is all about being flexible, adaptable, and it has to put people first.
Not just trying to shove everyone back into the office, right?
Right. It's got to be about creating that environment where people can collaborate, they can innovate, and they feel good doing it no matter where they're working from.
And that's a win for everyone.
Exactly. Those companies get it. Those are the ones that are going to succeed.
Couldn't agree more. Well, hey, thanks again for joining me today. I always love picking your brain.
My pleasure. I always enjoy these deep dives.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in. Hope you found this deep dive helpful, gave you some things to think about. And hey, if you're out there trying to manage all the IT stuff for a hybrid team, it can be a lot. Don't forget about GroWrk. They can really help make things easier. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.